Wanganui councillors will meet tonight as efforts to keep serial sex offender Stewart Murray Wilson out of their community continue. It follows angry scenes last night as hundreds of Wanganui residents gathered to show their frustration over the man dubbed the Beast of Blenheim moving into their city.
That beast here in Wanganui can go and live next to the Justice Minister.
You allow a monster to come in here, you have no idea what he's about to do.
The biggest worry I have is that Wilson is appealing the conditions of his release. If that is altered, that puts a totally different picture on it for us.
So what part of his strict conditions is Wilson actually appealing? His lawyer Andrew Mackenzie joins me now. Good morning, Andrew. Welcome to the show. Do you understand the anger and the frustration and the fear of the Wanganui residents?
I do. I think there's obviously been a lot of publicity on Wilson's release, a lot of information that people don't know, and obviously people are concerned for loved ones, and I can understand as a human why they feel like that.
He's always denied the charges, and maybe this is part of the problem. Have you sensed any kind of remorse from him?
A couple of years ago, Wilson did give a sort of half-baked apology, saying he regretted things that happened. I'm sure victims would want something more, but that's the position at the moment.
How comfortable would you be if he actually lived next door to you?
Well, I'd probably be wanting to know that there were things in place to ensure safety of the community, and I'd like to also know that he was actually reintegrated so that he could take part in society rather than be essentially put in a fishbowl or on a pedestal for everyone to look at and poke things at.
Talk to us about this appeal that you've got going on at the moment. Where are you at in the process, and what are the conditions that you're appealing against?
Corrections sought 21 conditions of parole, and the parole board approved 17 of them. Out of that 17, Wilson's challenging 8, and what's happened in that is that an application was filed last Friday in the Christchurch High Court. As a result of that, the judge made some directions, and a further statement of claim was filed on Tuesday. And those matters are all to be reviewed this Monday in the Christchurch High Court for further directions as to progress.
And what are you hoping will be the outcome of that?
Well, we'd be hoping that the hearing is dealt with as a matter of urgency. I think it's important for the people of Wanganui to know that this is all lawful and above board, and for everyone to be aware exactly what the terms of parole are. And there may also be obviously other people wanting to be involved, and the Wanganui Council have indicated their preference to look at legal action, so it may well be that both legal challenges will be heard together, which makes sense for the court's time and for the judge.
He doesn't want to be in Wanganui. The people of Wanganui don't want him there either. Is there an ultimate solution here?
Well, I think that's in some ways could be seen as a bit of a recipe for disaster, forcing someone kicking and screaming to a community that doesn't want him. As to whether there's a plan B or a plan C, that's probably matters for corrections, but I can say that Wilson is looking at alternatives, and those are matters which are under consideration. Where?
You talk about alternatives. Where else is he thinking about?
Probably not in the position to give another town or city, because obviously there's been the reaction in Wanganui, and if I was to say another city, then similarly there'll be that reaction. So yeah, I'm not in a position to say that, sorry.
You've spoken with him, you've probably had conversations with him. Does he fear for his own safety upon his release?
I think it'd be difficult not to fear for your safety when you're hearing some of the things that are being said, and some of the so-called public leaders and public officials in some ways drumming those type of feelings up, and that's obviously a concern to him, as it will be to the police, who no doubt will have the ultimate responsibility to keep him safe.
Can I ask you, have you yourself personally received any backlash from representing him?
I've received a few emails from people which haven't been on the threatening side of things, but just a little bit more asking me what the hell I'm doing. Obviously a few of my friends are making jokes like, "You've got a spare room at your place, Andrew, why don't you have him there?" So, you know, a little bit of that, but nothing of any matter that's of any seriousness for me, no.
How confident are you as his lawyer that he's not going to re-offend?
Well, I don't think it's a matter where, as his lawyer, I have a view on that as such. You know, Wilson has rights, he has a right to be released, and obviously there's a lot of things in place to ensure that there is no reoffending. Need to remember, of course, also that most of his offending happened 20, 30 years ago now. He's over 65, and circumstances are quite different next month than they were in 1975 or 1985 or 1990.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Nobody actually knows if he feels any remorse or if he's sorry for the situation that he's done. So is he a different person? Is he actually the beast that everybody has dubbed him out to be?
I've always found him someone that I can get instructions off without any sort of aggression or anything like that. So I haven't had those problems, but I imagine that other people have different reactions.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. There you have it, Andrew Mackenzie, the lawyer for Stewart Murray Wilson.
News Update is brought to you by ANZ, proud sponsor of the New Zealand Olympic team.
The Wanganui District Council is meeting right now to discuss ways to keep the Beast of Blenheim out, but some doubt there's anything the council can do to prevent serial sex offender Stewart Murray Wilson from being released into the community. One News reporter Sarah Batley is at the meeting. She joins us now. Sarah.
There's a huge amount of public interest in tonight's meeting. There's security guards have been brought in especially for it. There's also extra seating out here for the public to watch proceedings via a video link, with lawyers about to brief council on what legal options they can take to prevent Stewart Wilson moving to Wanganui.
An extraordinary meeting under extraordinary circumstances. The council tonight will receive legal advice on what action it can take to stop serial sex offender Stewart Murray Wilson from being released into the district.
Various things have been raised, from not granting the resource consent to a judicial review of the actual decision by the parole boards.
In the next 2 weeks, Wilson will move into a state house which is being shifted to the grounds of Wanganui Prison near Kaitoki. Corrections says he'll live under some of the most stringent conditions they've ever created. The council and the mayor are under pressure to act following strong community opposition. At a public meeting last night, Corrections and the police fronted up to more than 250 people.
I think that would be the feeling of any community in New Zealand if they'd been given the same news that we have been.
Wilson doesn't want to move to Wanganui either. His lawyer Andrew Mackenzie is challenging the conditions that Wilson is expected to live under.
Wanganui Council have indicated they want to legally challenge his placement, and it makes sense that a judge hears all the challenges about Wilson's parole in one court at one time.
But there are questions about which legal avenue is open for the council.
He's done his time, therefore he has an entitlement legally to live in a residence in New Zealand.
Michael Bott says community pressure could have a downside if Wilson is moved without breaching his conditions.
The real risk is that the department may well not tell the communities, and will the people of Wanganui or the next place really want that to happen, where they've got these people living in their midst, they don't know who they are and they can't monitor them.
Residents are threatening to leave the district altogether if Wilson does come.
So Sarah, when will residents find out what action the council will take?
Well, the council's aiming to give the community an answer tonight in terms of how they intend on dealing with this issue. Corrections Chief Executive Ray Smith is also at the meeting and will be considering how corrections respond to any legal action taken here in Wanganui.
Okay, thanks for the update, Sarah. Sarah Batley in Wanganui.
This One News Update is brought to you by ANZ, proud sponsor of the New Zealand Olympic team.
Close Up is brought to you by the Kia Sorento R. Redefining the power of Kia.
What happens if Wanganui wins the fight it's waging against the Beast? Will you be next up and battling to keep the unrepentant sex offender from moving into your neighbourhood? Wanganui City Council is meeting right now to discuss its next move. Michael Laws joins us now with the latest. And in Christchurch, Andrew Mackenzie. And now he is Stewart Murray Wilson's lawyer. And he himself has described that Wilson's move to a community that doesn't want him as a recipe for disaster. Andrew Mackenzie, that would have filled the Wanganui community with a lot of confidence.
Good evening, Mark. Thanks for inviting me here.
What did you mean by that? It's a recipe for disaster.
Well, essentially what corrections are doing is they're forcing someone to go where he doesn't want to go and also where the community doesn't want him. And obviously that's going to cause, as it has caused, a number of tensions and frictions and emotions, and those are dangerous in my view.
Michael Laws, you at least seem on the same page as his lawyer. The meeting, have you got anywhere? Has anything happened there in terms of the legal advice?
No, we've currently got the head of corrections here, Ray Smith, so the meeting's carrying on now. We've been quizzing him for the last hour. We've got the police here, and then after that we'll make a policy decision. There's only 2 motions on the floor. One is to basically resist the probation or the parole of Stewart Murray Wilson into our community, and the second one is to take all political, legal and administrative steps to effect that policy change.
Michael Laws, is the council united on this?
Pretty much, yeah. I think the community is. The reality is that I don't think I've ever seen my council colleagues so united, or you know, it's amazing, the whole community, Liberal, Conservative, Maori, Pākehā, old, young, it doesn't matter where you come from, our community doesn't want this man.
Andrew McKenzie, what other alternatives are there?
I think the way that this has all been arranged and managed is the wrong way. By announcing it with fanfare and flying everyone to Wanganui for a big media release has only served to increase everyone's fears and worries. In my view, the release should have been low-key, it shouldn't be public, and correction should have spent a lot more time in arranging something that would be a lot more concrete and a lot more sustainable in the long term.
Is your client fearful of moving to Wanganui?
Oh, clearly he's fearful. You know, there's been a lot of comments said. Some of them have been said in the heat of the moment. Some of them have been have gone too far in his view. But ultimately, yes, he does have concerns for his safety. The
reality is, though, no one in this country probably has a skerrick of sympathy for him. This is the problem you're dealing with.
It is.
So, is there any community he could be sent to?
None jump out, but obviously, as you say, this man needs to be released, and people need to take the view that providing that there's community safety, he deserves a chance as anyone else does to get on with his life, and ultimately he's hoping he can put matters behind him, get on with his life and remain offence-free.
You're shaking your head, Michael Laws. You don't think he is entitled to another chance?
No, he doesn't need to be released. I mean, it was really interesting to me that the government last year, with its search and surveillance bill, retrospectively applied legislation to ensure that 40 criminal trials didn't fall over in about 50 police investigations. This man is a huge danger wherever he goes. He should never be released. He should be preventively detained. And at the end of the day, I'm stunned that a government doesn't recognise that you try and protect communities from dangerous people and change the legislation. If it's good enough to do retrospectively last year, why isn't it good enough to protect us from this man?
So you want to kick it back to central government and say, you guys sort it out? Michael Laws.
Very much so. I mean, it's their decision. Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's their decision. They made it. They foisted him on us. They did it very, very sneakily. And the reality is he doesn't want to be here, mate, we don't want him here. And Stewart Murray Wilson is right to be worried. But I have a feeling that he would be worried wherever he goes because he shouldn't be out ever. He is a danger.
Andrew McKenzie, I'm sure, I mean, a lot of lawyers or head from civil liberties say, look, he has done his time. No matter what you think of him, he has to be free to go on and do what he wants to do. Should he be left to his own devices and to do what he wants to do, in your opinion?
Well, I think clearly community safety is an important issue, and obviously there needs to be sensible conditions around that. What Wilson says is the conditions that have been put in place aren't sensible and really are, if not setting him up to fail, fanning the hysteria that unfortunately is surrounding this release. So, you know, people take the view, you do the crime, you do the time. He's done a lot of crimes, he's done a lot of time, and on one view he should be, that should go behind him, but obviously he's still got his parole to serve. And I think that there should have been more effort put into reintegration, helping him find a job instead of saying you can't get a job, and actually trying to move into some sort of transition. I think people like the church and other groups like that probably have a role to play in that.
You're not going to offer him a job, Michael Laws?
Well, I'm going to say this man will never transition. I mean, that's the reality. The parole board, the reason why there are such stringent provisions around him, and we're still not happy, is because he is such a danger. He has never reformed. He's never admitted he's got he's committed offences. He hasn't admitted he's got a problem. Everybody says he's a maximum danger. This is exactly why preventative detention was required and brought into law for people like this.
Okay.
Now, go and make it apply to people like him.
We better let you get back into that meeting. Look, if you get a chance, we'd appreciate an update before the end of the program, Michael, if you've got a chance to pop out and talk to us. But look, I appreciate you coming out. And of course, Andrew Mackenzie, tough job you've got. Appreciate you coming on tonight.